Marisol says, how much space do you give them? How much space do you give them if his distance? I'm not sure what exactly you're asking there because it doesn't exactly make sense. But what you want to do is, like I said, just give him some space, right? So all you're doing is just letting him be. And most men will come back to you and reconnect with you. And that's what you want to do, right? And it's one of those things, right? If you're smothering a man, like we just had a debate about this in the community where this woman was like, why can't you just chase after a man? You want him, go after him. This is the Victorian times, right? And it's like, yeah, this isn't the Victorian times. And if you want to go and chase after a man, go ahead. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a really good way to get your heart broken and end up hooking up with a bunch of dudes that don't want anything more with you and ignoring all the red flags because you're so enamored and attached to men that only kind of like you and are just hanging out with you just for the hookups. I mean, if that's what you want to do, you can do that, right? But the reality is that you want men to be the one pursuing you and investing in you. And ultimately, when you get into a relationship, it should be together, right? You're building the relationship together. And so, you give them space because it's kind of like this, right? You're giving them space and you're coming back together, and you're giving them space and you're coming back together. And that's normal behavior, normal, healthy behavior. It creates attraction. It builds that attraction. It turns that attraction into a deeper form of love. And so it's not like there's no like, oh, you do it for 2 days or you do it for an hour or you do it for this amount of time. It depends on what you're giving him space for. It depends on what's going on with him. It depends on how much space he needs. It depends on what your relationship looks like before that. If you've been smothering a man, it's good to just pull back a little bit just to see what your relationship is to him. Because if you've been smothering him, he may not like you that much, right? Men will do this thing where they'll let women pursue them because most men, they don't get women pursuing them, right? Like 95+% of men never, ever have women pursue them, right? Or very, very little. And so when a woman starts pursuing them, even if he doesn't like her that much, he's like, well, she's doing all these things and she's planning dates and she's coming over and hooking up with me and she's not asking me for a commitment or anything like that. And, maybe I don't have anything else going on, or maybe I do, but she hasn't asked about it. So, what's the big deal? And so a lot of guys will just do that because you are the one doing all the work. And so you don't want to be the one doing all the work, right? You want it to, at the very least, be built together. And ideally, you want him to be doing the majority of the work because that's the best way to know that he's still interested, to know that there's nothing wrong, to, be not love drunk and see things with a clearer mind. Because if you're doing everything, you're going to get over invested. Next thing you know, you're going to be overly attached, and then you're going to be trying to make things work with him. And it's just a nightmare. Don't do that, right? And so, like I said, it depends on the man. It depends on the situation. It depends on what's going on with him. It depends on how much he feels like he needs. And if you give a guy space and he never comes back to you at all, then he probably didn't really like you that much, or the stuff that you were doing before that was built on just a horrible foundation where you were the one that was always initiating. And so he's like, why should I do anything here at all if she's going to just initiate all the time, right? So I hope that helps. There's no definitive anything on this, unfortunately. I mean, it would be really nice if I could say, you want to wait, 2 days and, 5 hours, right? And then you want to contact him back. But it depends. You want him to be pursuing you. You want him to be putting in effort. And if he's not doing that, it's either one, you set up the wrong frames and precedents, or two, he really just doesn't like you that much. And you are the reason why the relationship existed at all, or the dating scenario, because I wouldn't call it a relationship. And yeah, and that's a bad thing. That's a bad place for you to be. That you don't want to be there. You don't want to be there.